Hello and welcome to Jedi Jingle Maker. This is my YouTube channel where I review gear and I also make original music with the gear that I review. I hope you will subscribe and hit that like button. Also, let me know what you think. Today, we are going to talk about Firefly guitars. Now, this is a guilty little habit I've taken on over the last year or so where I discovered what Firefly guitars were. One of the things I like to do is to look at inexpensive guitars. I started purchasing Firefly guitars because I was just amazed at what I could get for such a low price, realizing you have to fix it up. But that initial purchase, less than a year ago, has now led to, and I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit, 7 Fireflies. And by the way, I purchased them all with my own money and quite happy. Really, out of the whole 7 that I got, there's really only one that is one that I would consider to be broken significantly. All repairable, but on that one guitar, it was the Les Paul, the Black Beauty copy that I have. It had some issues with the way the pickups were arranged, and then it had some other issues. You can see my video that shows all those and all the other videos I have on my channel. But the first Firefly that I got just set me off. It was $169, and I'll show you that one. This one. And it's like this white ceruse finish on ash. It's really heavy, but man, it just resonates and it just plays so well. I ended up putting in Seymour Duncan and roller bridge and just polished up the frets. The tuners were great. That one set me off. I ended up buying another and another, and they've really been consistently very good. The most recent Firefly I got before the one we're going to unbox today is this one. Now, I was very skeptical about getting a Telecaster that had this type of bridge for some reason, thinking that there'd be no way I could intonate it. Oddly enough, it intonated perfectly with no intonation changes needed, meaning it came intonated out of the box. This is one of the best Fireflies I've gotten so far, and of course, once again, it caused me to purchase another one, which we'll unbox here shortly. Can't wait to see what that one's all about, and you'll get to see my initial reaction. Then I'm going to go ahead and dissect every little part that I know of to look at a guitar, and I'll take out the fret rocker, we'll see how the frets are, we'll do the whole 9 yards, even look into the control cavity, and then at the end of the video I'll give you my final impressions, and then I will tell you the kinds of modifications that I plan to do in the next related video so that you can also see if those are kinds of changes you might want to do if you get a Firefly. These are great modification platforms, I would say. I really find them to be quite solid in the foundation and just needing some tweaking. Of course, every once in a while you'll get a dud in any guitar brand, maybe more, maybe less than this one. I have no idea. All I can say is by Firefly math, I think I spent about, let's see, $1,400 on 7 guitars. That's incredible. And like 3 of them are some of the greatest guitars I have, even though I have $1,000 plus guitars. And I say that with no reservation. Just simply because how they play, how they hold their tuning, that they can intonate, that they're very resonant, that they are solid and fit. And the finish is really the one place where you might find some deficiencies. Okay, let's get this box and we'll go fast mode and you can watch me unbox this thing. One of the things I've noticed in Fireflies is they come packaged incredibly, all sealed in foam. So I haven't had any problems with them being damaged in shipping as far as I could tell. This one I suspect is no different. They come in a rather small box. Let's take a look at it. Okay, so here it is. Find Your Stage, designed by JSN. And I want to show you that it lists the complete serial number here, which is FFTL, FM for Flame Maple, I suppose, BG, not sure what that means, 57. I'm not sure what that means either. Oh yes. Beautiful coffin style packaging, 3 pieces of tape. Very, very good. Of course, they always come with the bag. It has a cheap cord and a bar for the truss rod adjustment at the base of the neck. This has a beautiful truss rod adjustment system in it. And looks like an Allen wrench to adjust the saddles. Okay, this one's got a little bit more weight than the other one. A little bit more weight. Not too much. Not nearly as heavy as the Stratocasters. And by the way, I will tolerate the weight any day if it sounds good and plays well. Okay, interesting. This is a lighter flaming on the neck. Don't mind it. First impression is just wow. It looks really good. That flaming on the top changes as you change the light direction. Love this pearloid pickguard. I've got to see if this plays. Just see if it frets out anymore. Wow. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is just look to see if these strings are spaced uniformly down the side of the frets. Just make sure the neck is on straight. Sure does look like it. Finish looks really good. Oh, I am so stoked. Look at this neck. Hopefully you can see the flaming a bit as it changes direction in the light. They say you can tell if it's real flaming by that. I'm sure there's a finishing technique that would mimic it though, but it doesn't matter. It is beautiful one way or another. The neck on these guitars to me is just about perfect. It's a lot like something like a beefier, a little bit slightly beefier Ibanez Wizard neck. If you know those necks, that's one of my favorite. More like a Schecter, but slightly different, but in that ballpark of like Schecter Slim C. Out of tune, but just trying to feel the action. Feels good. Okay, I can feel how gritty the frets are when you vibrate the strings. You can hear it grinding. So easy to fix. Wow. All right, well, we're gonna dive right in and look at this thing top to bottom. I may have gotten another gem. And again, I don't work for Firefly. I don't care if you buy a Firefly. All I'm doing is sharing my experience. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. So I kind of feel like I hit the lottery. No, well, just when I say that, did I say, no, it's just a little bit of schmutz. A little bit of residue. It looked like there was a gash mark, but it wasn't. It's just like a little bit of, I don't know, something that can be easily scraped off. So no problem. I see a little more right here. Yeah, it comes right off. Some kind of glue maybe or something. But wow, what a beautiful guitar right out of the box. And to already play pretty much good enough. We'll take a look at it underneath the light, at every little aspect of this thing, but for it to be this good right away, I am in seventh heaven. Let's dive right into it. Okay, let's take a closer look at this beautiful guitar. Had a little bit of time to play it and fool around with the action. Just a little bit. I adjusted these saddles just slightly to raise the action a bit, and I pulled this one in just a bit to adjust a little bit of the intonation, but I didn't want to go crazy. It was close to intonation, but it wasn't perfect. I can do that after I get it all set up, after I put the right strings I want on there. And I also, in this video, I'm going to give you a look at every feature I can show you on this guitar, but then afterwards we're going to modify it. So I'm going to do both of those things in this same video, both the review and the modification. And then at the end, I'll do a little sound demonstration of what it sounds like. All right, so let's get into this guitar, into the details. First, the finish. I've been staring at this flame maple top for some time since I got it, and it is really nice. As you move the guitar, you can see, I don't know if the camera is going to pick it up, but you can see how the flaming changes, which is, I think, really cool. I love how the blue was faded into the translucent green. Really, really nice. The finish just seems to be very, very clean on this one. Now on the back, a little bit difficult. It's actually easier with the camera to see how many pieces of wood this is made of. To me, it really doesn't much matter, but a beautiful looking back, kind of a translucent finish. Really cool. Oh, it looks like there's one, is that one piece, one skinnier piece? No, maybe not. Can't really tell. And if you see on the sides, it's also translucent, but a little bit thicker finish. I've taken a pretty close look at this and have not found anything other than perfect. Really, really nice. Some of the things you see on this are just a matter of a little bit of residue getting on it, like this thing, but it's not marked on the actual finish. I would give this finish job a high rating for sure. Let's look at a minor detail here, but to me important. Strap knobs to see if they are on securely, and this one certainly is. You can see it's got the oversized head on it, but it's just a very solid connection. If you come down and look at the other end, same kind of thing. I found the connections on these newer Fireflies to be very, very solid, without any doubt. As you can see, it is nice to look at. Okay, well, this has got the ashtray bridge on it, which comes with these 3-barrel saddles. This is the second guitar I've had with those types of saddles. And this time I'm actually going to replace them with compensated saddles. I think that'll give me a better chance of getting this close to intonated or maybe totally intonated. But I like the feel of the bridge and the look of it. It's sturdy. I think maybe these types of saddles gives more of an authentic kind of Telecaster sound, which is interesting to me. These are Alnico pickups apparently. Now, interestingly enough, these pickups, I like the sound of them. They're different than the other FFTL that I got, which I thought the pickups, whatever the pickups, the electronics, whatever it was, sounded a little bit muddy. These sound much more clear and actually vintage. I like them. They're slightly microphonic, which doesn't bother me at all. I think it actually adds to the sound and the quality of this. I suppose if you're playing out in very loud live settings where you can have feedback, that could be a problem. That's not really what I'm doing. But I like the tone, so I don't plan on replacing these pickups. I plan on keeping them in. Now, this pickguard is beautiful. I really, really like the pickguard, and I'll try to move it to show you. It has a 3D kind of quality to it when you turn it to the light. Really neat. I've never seen a pickguard exactly like this. Now, are you ready? Hopefully the camera will pick this up. One of my favorite parts of the new guitar experience. And the somewhat interesting thing with this is that the pickup is also covered with plastic. We're going to take this pickguard off and look at the electronics. And I haven't decided yet if I'm going to shield this guitar. I might. We'll decide as we move along. We must remove all the plastic. There we have it. It's almost like you could remove this from here. It's strange, maybe this is a standard thing when you buy these types of pickups with the lipstick cover. Looks like this will come right off from the top as well. A little bit of plastic left over. I'm not going to sweat that. I'll get it when I take off the pickguard, but looks much better with the plastic off of it. Very, very nice. And I think it goes so well with this finish. Some of the Firefly finishes are not really my cup of tea, but I've really found several that I like quite a lot, and this definitely fits in that category. Very nice. I could almost see a gold cover here. That's something very easy to change if I wanted to do that. Okay, but moving right along to the frets. These are the stainless steel ball-end frets, which I absolutely love. I went a little bit too far with the fret hammer on one of my guitars and kind of lifted the end of one of the frets out of the little slot that it's in, and that can be problematic. So today we're going to, once I take the strings off, we'll go ahead and take a fret rocker to this entire neck, and I'll show you if there's any uneven spots. But I've played it a fair amount since I unboxed it, and I would say there's a little bit of buzziness on the E, which isn't a problem. I haven't even adjusted the relief in the neck yet. So with no adjustments, it's already playing perfectly fine. I mean, you can't really hear the buzzing in the E string. It's not bad at all. I lifted up the action just a little bit and it pretty much resolved it, but the action on these strings was low enough for me right out of the box. So I will be changing it a bit, but you can see it's actually, I'm trying to make it so my hand's not touching the strings. It's actually very low, and it's not buzzing at all in the higher strings. So really, I don't expect there to be a lot of uneven frets. I'm sure there are some. Most guitars have some, but already it's playable. And I may decide to take the fret hammer lightly to some of these to tap them in just to get them more snug fit. You know, the wood's adjusted from all of its humidity changes and things over time, so not a bad idea, but you have to be careful, I found, with applying that fret hammer, because you can definitely go too far. You don't want to do that where you damage the frets or cause them to lift out. But I can tell you that the fretwork is very nice. These ball-end frets come standard on most of the Fireflies now, and you know, I think they pre-round them before they put them on, but they're just really super smooth. It's a revolution in terms of smoothness of fret ends. I've had some that were really rough in import guitars, and these are not at all. They're great, and in fact the frets come very gritty out of the box, I've found, which really is no problem at all. I use the Fine fret polish and just polish them right off. Today I might go ahead and use the fret polishing Dremel attachment I have and the Jeweler's Rouge to really give them a shine. But once you get these shined up, they are lightning fast, and I just love the way these necks and these guitars play. It's really unbelievable that for what I paid for this guitar, I think I paid $189 and then another 20 some odd for shipping, so like $208 I think it was shipped. To get a guitar of this quality blows my mind. I say it all the time. If you look at I like these just standard dot inlays as opposed to the block inlays, but if you look at them, they're really nice Abalone inlays, and I mean, they've actually got a decent amount of detail in the inlays. Look at that one. Again, just really cool. The nut is bone, and you can tell that it obviously is bone. It's got a little bit of like a probably polishing compound in here that I can easily clean off, but it looks like the nut was cut fairly well. I haven't had any problems really with the tuning since I got it. And it hasn't been super stable, but these strings needed to be stretched. They had a lot of play in them, so you know, I'm not judging anything about the tuning stability, but for guitar that had these horrible strings on it, that needed lots of stretching, and, you know, who knows what their origin is, they were really rather good. I don't like these types of string trees. All the Fireflies I've gotten that are Stratocasters and Telecasters come with this type. Very easy to replace. I put the Graphite one just on these two strings. The thing is, these tuners make it so that you don't need to replace both of these. You don't need to have both of these string trees. So I'm going to remove this one like I have on my others. That removes any friction point here. And this one, you can see this one hardly, these two hardly bend it down at all. And that's because these tuners actually have staggered heads. So these two are smaller than these four. Like if you get Goto, it'll usually be 2, 2, and 2 in decreasing heights. This is 4 and 2, but that means that the angle of the string is already down lower to the head, which is what these string trees are trying to solve. The other thing is you can get the harp effect where these strings ring out. I don't think that's going to be such a big deal with these two. That's why I usually just go with replacing one of them. But I'm definitely going to take those out, and that should help with some of the tuning stability, or add tuning stability. And the other thing is, if you look, these are locking tuners, and they have them looped around the head multiple times, and that's a no-no. That actually kind of reduces the tuning stability, because you give the possibility that as you bend strings that they'll loosen and then resettle in a way that makes them either sharp or flat. So when I put the new strings on, I'll just pull it through, tighten it, and then wind it, and it won't wrap the peg, and that'll help add to stability. Now these tuners, I'm going to see if I can stand this up. These locking tuners I found to be very good, oddly enough. I had one guitar where I had them in the review, I'd said they weren't good, and I realized that it was simply a matter of just tightening these screws. That the play that I was encountering was because they weren't on there tight with this screw. Once you tighten those, I found them to be very good. This means that I don't have to replace these tuners. That's something I do on most guitars, on most of my expensive guitars. So pretty amazing. They look a lot like the ones that come on Schecter guitars, actually. I'm not saying they're the same, but you can see the serial number here. That means that it was made in Factory 6 in 2023, 10th month, and it was the 15,623rd guitar to come off the assembly line. That's what I think that means. The neck itself, beautiful. Flamed. I believe this is real flamed maple. I really do, from looking at it pretty carefully and in the light too. It's just a smooth and perfectly shaped neck, in my opinion. I love the feel of the neck. You can see it's got some mineral marks in it, which is typical, but very solid, very smooth, no issues whatsoever in the neck. There's one little spot that maybe feels slightly rough. I might take a tiny piece of some very fine grit sandpaper and just smooth a couple spots, but otherwise it's, you know, pretty much just good to go. Feels fantastic. You can see that these Fireflies, this neck at least, comes with that V in here. It might have been nice if they had it, you know, rounded farther down, but I don't mind it. I like it. I'm going to take this sticker off, of course. Stickers on guitar necks are always a bad idea, so remove the sticker. If you look at one of the things I like to look at is the fit here, the gap, the space in the neck pocket, to see if there is a gap in the neck pocket. And on this guitar, there really isn't a space in there. It's a nice tight fit on that side, and also very nice tight fit on that side. So just impressive tight tolerances on these is what I found in the newer Fireflies. Probably thanks to the miracle of CNC machines. Another thing I like to do is to see if the neck looks like it's mounted onto the body correctly, would it need a shim, and it doesn't look like it needs anything like that on this one. It all looks like it should. Another thing I check is the distance from the edge of the string to the edge of the fretboard on both sides. What I'm looking for is to see if this is a uniform spacing all the way up and down the neck. That'll help you know if the neck is put on straight. This one sure looks like it is. So very happy with that. You might notice some little tooling marks on the edge here, but just ever so slight, nothing that matters whatsoever. And as a matter of fact, one thing I want to point out is that this fretboard has, like, it looks like rounded, slightly rounded fretboard, which is really nice. That's another easy mod you can do, is just sand off the edges a little bit. So really give this high ratings in terms of the neck. And now looking at the controls, just the feel of the controls, they feel very solid. I mean, very solid switch for sure. And I've been switching it between positions. All the electronics work correctly. The knobs have good tension on them. They're not too loose or too rigid. Now, the pots themselves, they're likely the full-size pots. I'm not sure, we'll see. But, you know, it's always a good idea to replace the electronics in inexpensive guitars like this with higher quality gear. That's something that's very, very easy to do and very inexpensive to do if you just buy the parts. So I may do that in the future, but for now it works. So this one, like I said, I like the way it sounds. I'm not going to change the pickups. I don't really see the need to do that. The other one that I have, I will be changing the pickups, so stay tuned for that. Another thing I look at is to see if these string ferrules are put on evenly, and they are. You would expect that they would be with a CNC machine, certainly, which I'm claiming is how these are made. Okay, let's start to take this thing apart a little bit, get the strings off, and do all the standard checks to see what stacks up as quality-wise. Everything you see in this video, I'll leave a link down in the description. This is a simple tool that I use quite a bit. It's got both the snips and a string unwinder. Perfect for jobs like this. What I do is I just loosen it a bit. For sure you want to get new strings on these things. The strings they come with have been consistently meh. Now I hold on to these strings because I'm going to use them to just remove any rough edges that might be in the nut here. I'll show you how I do that in a moment, but I keep these loose ends. Interesting, they are the colored fret ends. Some people have claimed that that means they're the name brand, but I'm pretty sure they are not. Let's go ahead and very lightly file out these nut slots. And I'm using that low string. You have to be careful that you don't actually damage it. I'm not going heavy here. I'm just any burrs that I can. You can see almost this is like a dust. That's little chips of bone. It's another thing that tells me this is really bone. And I'm just ever so lightly. And I'm using this thicker one even for that second spot. Again, don't want to go crazy. I'll step it down. Now it's a little less simple with these non-braided stocks. They don't really have that sanding effect, but you can still use them to just make sure that any rough edges, any burrs that might be in there are knocked off. And another thing we're going to do is we're going to grease these with graphite grease. So we should have a good situation there for tuning once we do those simple steps. Now we're going to look at the fret radius. This is a fret radius measurement tool. You can see it's got the 14-inch diameter. I believe this neck said that it was 10 to 14, so compound radius that flattens out as you get lower. That is a good situation typically. And yeah, it fits perfectly, so that is 14. Consistently 14. If I come up here, it does rock. Now we'll see if we can get the 20 to fit in, the 10 to fit in there, and check that it's actually 10. There you go, that's 10. Let's try that. Yep. Seems to fit quite nicely. So it does look like it is a 10 to 14. Now let's take out the famous StewMac fret rocker. I love this thing. And we'll see if we have any uneven frets. I'll go in super fast mode and I'll stop it to look at anything that is little bit, just ever so slight rock there. Ever so slight rock there. So this one's got a little bit unevenness through that side. Tiny bit of rock there. Now these are things that can very easily be addressed by a slight tap of the fret hammer. And a little bit of rock. Oh, no, not really. It's nice and soft. A little bit of fret rock there, a little bit there. So that fret's a little high. A little bit of rock right on the end of that fret. Small amount of rock there. There was just a little bit more through here, and then it was none there. Tiny, ever so slightest amount there, and then very, very slightest amount there, and then it's gone. A little bit of rock right there. Less. A little bit there. A little bit there. A little bit of rock there. Yep. High there. A little bit of fret rocker here for sure. This one's got height throughout. Okay, so we looked at the entire neck. There are some spots where there's a little bit of unevenness up towards the upper part of the neck and then much more down towards the bottom. I may, before I put the strings on and before I clean off the fretboard, I may just take a fret hammer. We'll cover that in the video and see if I can get them to just snugly fit in there a bit better. I'm guessing that's all it'll take. Typically the frets on these guitars, the inexpensive, the import guitars, they're just tapped in, so pressed in, so they don't have glue holding them in. So I'm going to claim that if you're going to do a fret leveling, really the best thing is to glue them in first so that they're stable and then fret level it. But you know, hopefully you don't have to do that, because once you start taking metal off, you can never put it back on, and that can go wrong. So I'm always a little worried about that. Of course, sometimes you really need to. Okay, let's take off this pickup cover, this Pickguard, and see what's underneath. Ooh, my. Okay, so if you look here, it is, well, looks like there's some wax in there, so it looks like it's wax potted probably. Hard to say, I don't want to misspeak, but I don't know much about these pickups, but I can tell you that these are the cloth wires, which is kind of neat, and that this cavity, oh, that's graphite. This cavity is lined with graphite. I'll be darned. All right, so it's a shielded cavity. Never would have guessed that. However, this side of the pickguard is not shielded. that would be an easy modification for me to do, which should be to, even though this is graphite, to go ahead and line it with copper shielding and then line the pickguard. I'm gonna have to decide if I want to do that. But very, very clean routing. And I think it's the kind of routing where you could put a humbucker here too, which is kind of cool to note if you got a different pickguard, or even cut this one out with a Dremel tool to accommodate a larger pickup. Very, very interesting. Okay, so this one's ready for all kinds of modifications. Now let's take a look at the control cavity. Interesting. There's pieces of plastic that are underneath the control cavity. Interesting. You can see like there's pieces of plastic right in here underneath this screw. Found weird little quirky things like this as I've acquired these Fireflies, where like this is odd to have plastic underneath the screw on a switch like this. Easy enough to remedy. And you can see they are full-size pots. Doesn't necessarily mean anything. They say P24K series, B250. The other one says A250. So these are 250K potentiometers, which is what you'd want in a guitar like this. They've got the blade switch. All looks good. The wiring looks good enough, clean enough. I don't see any issues, any loose connections, any poor solder points. You can see it's got the large capacitor here, which is interesting, and I'm not sure how good any of this stuff is really. It's got, that's graphite too. It's got graphite inside the control cavity. Quite interesting. Of course, problem with that is it's not connected through to the plate, so it does nothing if it's not grounded to the plate. Now, one thing they could have done is to attach a ground wire in there, but they haven't done that. But from what I've researched, grounding or shielding the control cavity doesn't get you much. Like that's not where the interference is being picked up. It's in the pickups is where the interference is being picked up. So I suppose the last step would be to take this off. This is the first time I've tried to take a Telecaster bridge off, so as usual I'm a little bit nervous about doing it just because I don't know exactly what I'm getting into. But I think this is all a rite of passage, certainly, but it's making it a little bit tough to get in there having those saddles there, so I think I'll remove the saddles first since I'm going to replace them anyhow. Now I should mention that I just want to mention that some of the Firefly guitars that I've purchased have come with the inside painted black rather than graphite in there, so it's not always that way, but I feel pretty happy that today I got the actual graphite, and that means all I need to do to make it actually work is to ground it to the metal. I'll show you how I do that here in just a minute. Now this is the first time I've ever taken a Telecaster bridge off, and I'll admit I'm a little bit worried that I'll mess it up somehow. That's always a fear when modifying guitars, you know, first time. Of course, it's really nice when the consequence is $200 maximum damage. Most of what you can mess up by doing little projects like this can easily be fixed by a skilled guitar technician, luthier, whatever you want to call them. Of course, that'll cost you about probably $40 to $100. Not sure if upgrading this bridge is a good idea. If you have upgraded Firefly bridges or know anything about this, let me know. If you recommend I upgrade it, or if there's a certain kind that you know fits, leave that in the comments. I would really appreciate it. That might be a future mod, just to play around with tones. I've heard on certain channels that this is a key to the tone of a Telecaster, is the ashtray bridge. I do not know if that is true. Interesting. Okay, that looks like that looks like graphite. Yep, that's graphite. Very nice, and I can see it's grounded right there. You can see the little ground wire coming out. Nice job with that. Boy, everything looks terrific. But again, just to point out, very clean routing. I mean, very, very clean routing. No burrs, no splintery parts, nothing. Perfection. However, this grounding, this shielding paint, there is no connection through to the top to this metal part, so I'm going to take some copper tape and remedy that. Very, very good. Interesting, the pickup, I want to make sure I can show this, but I can't really get it angled, but this is looks like to be a brass plate on the bottom of this, which is really neat. I'm going to have to research that, but my other Telecaster pickup also came with a metal plate on the bottom. I think that's a good thing for the tone. All I know is that I like the tone of this guitar just the way it is. Okay, let's get the copper tape and do the simple modification so that we make sure the shielding actually bonds and creates a good surface to catch interference. First things first, if you're going to be doing shielding with foil tape, copper tape, it's very important that you get the dual connectivity tape. It's not a bad idea to test it. I know this is good, so I'd recommend this if you can get this stuff, but there's lots of other brands similar. It's not that expensive. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to pick some up. This is the second roll I've gotten, and it's lasted me quite a while. You can see that you get quite a bit with it. This is the 2" by 33" variety. I think you can get it 60 feet too, but I'm not going to need much for this job because the cavity is already shielded. But I'm just going to cut off a couple strips. I'll cut off a few strips. Why not go 4? I might need more, but that'll be enough for now. Okay, now what I need to do is just make sure that this part grounds through to where the screw is. So I think what I'll do is just run one right out like that. That should be great. All right. Just for style points. Round it off. Why not? And there you have it. It's that easy. Now when I put the screw back through here, I'll screw it through that foil. This metal will touch that copper metal, and that is touching the inside shielding, so now it's all grounded through. Very, very easy to do as a result of Firefly putting that shielding in. That to me is an upgrade. Not all the Fireflies I have that, so way to go, Firefly. Keep up that trend. Put the bridge back on. Now I just gently secured these in. I would like to get it as straight as possible. One of the things I'm a little worried about is this bridge going back on crooked. suppose I'm overthinking it, but being my first time, I know that taking your time sure beats the alternative. I don't want to strip out these holes in any way, but I want it to be tight. So here are the saddles I purchased. And they're supposed to be compensated saddles. So the idea is that these would be able to be intonated more easily. And I'll show you, these are the ones that I purchased. And let's compare them. I'll try to get them in focus here with the ones that I had on there. Gotta say, I don't know what the difference is. These say they're compensated, whatever that means. But I actually like the look of the Firefly more. They're very similar. All right, well, we'll try these out. Now, I suppose I should have marked where the saddles were, but it won't much matter. I've got to intonate the whole thing regardless. Okay, let's replace the string trees. We're going to take off both of these. We're going to put on one Graphite replacement. Please don't forget to subscribe. Also hit the like if you like it. Leave a comment. Let me know about your modifications. You can see that the screw is actually much bigger than the one that it comes with. One of the things you could do is drill that hole out a little wider, but I haven't found the need to do that. One risk is that you split the wood or something like that, but I don't think there's much of a danger of that. And I had success with these in the other guitars, so. Certainly is a snug fit though, which I like. There you go. Continuing on. See the connection point that's closest. Yeah, so I think what I'm going to do is remove this pickup and shield the entire inside of this pickguard since it's unshielded now. That seems like the right thing to do. It's really a nice multi-ply pickguard. I'm really impressed by this pickguard. Just getting off anything that might be on the back. Maybe that's the smart way to do it. You have to be careful when you get long pieces like this. It wants to wrap back on itself. A little technique I use is just to stick it to your thumb so it doesn't do that, and put your finger in behind it. See how it wants to curl like that? That's what you don't want. You want to keep it fairly, there we go, no. That screw is spinning in place, so it's not really a solid connection. I'll probably get a better screw for that. So I've been making this video over the last week, and I've thought about this next decision I'm making carefully, and that is to get medieval with this guitar and go ahead all in with the fret hammer. Now, I'll put a link in the description to this one. They called it a gunsmithing hammer, but they also sell them as fret hammers. I've seen them all over Amazon. This one comes with screw-in heads, so you get the acrylic, I guess. This is brass, more like a rubber, plastic, and this is aluminum. I found that this one can mar up your frets a bit, so I'm not going to use that anymore. Whenever you use something like this, you are risking actually damaging the guitar. So if you go out your guitar with a fret hammer, you might wind up with something like the result I got on one of my Fireflies, where I went a little overboard. I scratched up some of the frets, and I also lifted the ends off of 2 of the frets from the edge of the fretboard. So I've got to now go back in and glue those and fix it. And so you can go too far. This is, part of my guitar journey to become knowledgeable in how to do things to guitars. So I've got to take risks, and I think this will work. Now, I tried it on that Super FFST guitar, and like I said, I went a little overboard. I've got to do some repairs now from what I cost, but nothing horrible. I know how to do that. It's going to be fun to do. Stay tuned for the video on that. But the other guitar that I did it on was the FFSP, which I had a bunch of issues with, and I think I worked through most of the big ones except for replacing the nut. And that guitar, I ended up tapping the frets in, mostly with this end, and it really resolved the fret issues. It has a very flat fret situation just with the fret hammer. You can do that because the frets are not glued in these guitars. So you just tap them in, and most of the time they'll just stay snugly fit. And you can check it with the essential tool of a fret rocker, just like the one we used earlier in the video. Now we're going to use it to make sure that we know where to tap. Okay, so this video will be mostly high speed, but you'll get the idea. You just go along, carefully measure, lightly tap. Lightly tap. Now I think I'll go ahead and replace this right now with the rubber. And we're going to try that rubber. I read some comments that these things come unscrewed as you tap, and it's true, they do kind of loosen up, but it's easy enough to retighten them. You don't want to go too hard with this. You want to just kind of apply light taps in the strategic right places. Let's begin. Well, okay. That was fun, actually. I was able to achieve, I think, very, very good frets on this Firefly, just with a little bit of tapping. If you notice, I put the support directly under the fret so that you don't want to create damage to the neck. So you provide support wherever you're hammering, but just very lightly with this rubber mallet. Definitely prefer this to the brass. Do not recommend the brass on these Firefly frets. They scratch them up. I don't think I'd use the aluminum either. Seems like very hardcore. I would only use these two types of heads. But just with a little bit of tapping, no gluing, no complexity, there we are. The fretwork is already flawless because of these ball end frets, which are very nice. So the last thing I need to do here is just clean off the fretboard itself and polish the frets, but not in that order. Okay, let's clean this thing off. This is what I use. I'll put a link in the description, so check that out. Use the affiliate link to support the channel. It's just this fret polish, and the other stuff is just like a fret cleaning oil that you put on. And they both seem to work pretty well. I've used them on many guitars. They make the neck feel great after you're done with it. There's lots of ways to do what we're doing here. We're just polishing the frets. They'll polish up nicely, takes off the tarnish, any grit. I've been playing this one a bit, so I've already kind of filed off some of the grit, but you can feel there's a bit on there. That'll come right off. Clean off this fretboard, and we will be good to go. Last thing will be to graphite grease the nut and put on new strings. Okay, now it's that time of the video where we're going to lubricate the nut with graphite grease, and I'm going to demonstrate, as part of this video, some new strings that I found. The good people at Journey Instruments sent me these to try out. They are travel tested guitar strings, meaning that they're coated so they can resist corrosion and so on. And in this video, I'm going to make a song with the strings I'm showing you now, in the guitar I'm showing you now with the stock pickups, which I like very much. But the Journey Instruments folks say that this is durable and corrosion resistant, rich and full tone, built tough for travel, so really cool. They're actually nano-coated strings, and they're supposed to deliver long-term frequency kind of level, sustained frequency level, meaning they don't lose their kind of shine. So I like that. We're going to give that a go. These are 10s. I usually play 9s, but I think on the Telecaster, to get that twang, 10s are the call. So this is actually the gauge I would have chosen. Let's take a look. Oh, here we go. Click that out. Sign up for a newsletter. That's cool. Okay, interesting. I see, very easy. Let's get started. These look like normal strings, basically. I don't notice any coating on them, that's for sure. Cool thing about this guitar is it is string through. And of course the tuners are locking tuners, so very easy to lock them in there, but I'm not going to go too far with that because I want to put the graphite grease in first, and I think I'll go ahead and do that right now before I get any further. There's the good stuff. Alright, I don't really have a tool to take it out with, so I think I'll just kind of willy-nilly dig it out with anything I can find here. I really want... Yeah, I'm just going to use a little Allen wrench. You just really need to get a little glob of it. This is, I think, the easiest way to do it. Take a little ball of it and then just move along here and jam it inside the holes. It roughly fills the hole. Doesn't matter if it gets on stuff. Easy enough to wipe off. Again, a little piece of it. And just fill it in. That's about it. Boom. Easy. And I'll put the link to this as well. Very inexpensive, lasts for a long time. All right, let's continue on. This tuner seems to be broken in some way. I can't get it through there, and it looks like it's blocked. Looks like almost like the shaft of that tightening thing broke off and is wedged up in there in an almost locked position. So luckily I have some replacements. I'm just going to replace it with one from my parts bin. Just take a second to go get that. Okay, here are the parts. Good way to deal with old parts, always just put them in a Ziploc bag. Try to find one. Yeah, okay. So yeah, this one's nice and clear through the middle. I believe it's the same ones. Feels nice and tight. Now if I didn't have these tuners as backup, this would be a real bummer. But it's not a bummer. It's not that big of a bummer actually, because you could just get replacement locking tuners, which is something I end up doing in mostly all my other guitars that don't already come with them. Now since this one is broken, I don't know if you can see, the hole is completely blocked. Just gonna throw it away. I don't want to try to mess with that. These are the same exact tuners. The tuners I'm putting on here came off a Firefly FFTL, a Super FFTL. Another ash wood guitar. This guitar is roasted mahogany body. Okay, the final string. Coated strings. Very nice. These are going to be great. I plan on playing this guitar outdoors in salty environments near the ocean. A lot of those performances will be on the channel, so stay tuned to hear how these strings hold up over time in those recordings. Also at the end of the video, the song that you'll hear will be created with these strings. Man, this guitar looks so good to me. Go ahead and wind them up. And you can see I didn't wrap the post. Just straight through and lock it. That's the correct way to use these locking tuners. Or else you can end up defeating one of the main benefits.